In essence, Ubuntu is an ancient African philosophy that means unity within community. That's probably the best definition I've come up with. It's not easy to describe Ubuntu because it is truly a philosophy on life, on sharing, on community, on prosperity, everything together. But one of the many descriptions that it gets is, I am who I am because who we all are in our community. And I came up with a word, Ubuntu, for Ubuntu, a description in the 21st century, which I call contributionism, to describe Ubuntu in its original form. And contributionism means where we all contribute our talents and skills for the greatest benefit of everyone in our community. You know, when I was writing Slave Species of God, and I was really looking deeply into the origins of humankind and who we are, where we come from, why we are here, looking at all the ancient texts and as much information as I could, it became very clear to me that humanity existed without money for much longer than we've existed with money. So I started thinking, well, hold on, this doesn't make any sense, because all of us are born into a money society. We're born into capitalism, we're born into communism, we're born into some sort of system that is driven by money, because we can't imagine a world without money. So I started thinking, well, that's not really true, is it? Because if people existed without money for thousands and thousands of years, how did they survive? How did they buy things? How did they get things if there was no money? And I started looking at a philosophy or a theory of what would happen if you took money out of the system. If you just removed money, how would things work? And to my surprise, I started finding that the more you remove money from the system, the easier and simpler things get. The easier it is for us to survive, the easier it is for us to coexist, to share ideas, to share knowledge and information and create inventions without them being hidden or masked or stolen by companies. And I realized that that's actually the way it should be. That money is just a tool of enslavement that was imposed on humanity at some specific time in our history. And that's exactly what I found out. I found out that there was a very specific point in human history that money was introduced maliciously and cunningly by design as a tool of enslavement of the human race. My research points towards the Sumerian texts that give us some indication of where this control of humanity began. And there are several Sumerian texts known as the King's Lists. And two of the King's Lists specifically speak about the creation of the royal bloodlines and then the creation of money. And they tell us that there was a time in human history when kingdom was lowered to earth from heaven, and the first kings and priest kings were appointed by the gods. So it seems to me that the royal bloodlines were imposed on humanity, and certain people were chosen to be the first kings, to be the representatives of the gods or the Anunnaki on planet Earth. They were appointed by the gods and the Anunnaki, if you want to call them that, and they were given knowledge and weapons and knowledge of alchemy and sorcery to be able to control humanity, because they needed some tools and powers, otherwise nobody would listen to them, right? Say, well, I'm your new king, you better listen to me. Say, really? I don't think so, go away. So clearly the royal bloodlines must have been imposed under some sort of threat of violence against the people. If you don't do what I tell you, I will kill you, or I will smite you, or I will, burn your house down, or whatever. And so this is a very important moment in human history, and this is how far back we can trace the current bloodlines, the royal bloodlines that are still in the world today, can be traced back to these ancient times that the Sumerian texts talk about. And these first priest kings and royal bloodlines became the first bankers, and the banks were the temples. So bank and temple are synonymous with control of humanity and money. So what these first priest kings did is they introduced this thing called money as a form of control. And then they became the bankers, the temples were the banks, and this is how they started to control the people. They owned all the land. The people had to pay them taxes to live on the land and listen and obey their rules and their command. It's a complete hijacking of the human race in ancient times by these so-called royal bloodlines. And this is where we see the origins of money and the royal bloodlines that have kept and held onto the control of the creation of money as a tool of enslavement, which still continues today. We are very aware of the bloodlines. It's the royalty on planet Earth, you know, the Queen of England, the Queen of Holland, the Dutch royalty, the German royalty, the Anglo-Saxon empire that has pretty much taken control of our planet. And they are in cahoots with all the governments of the world. They impose themselves on the governments. They have pretty much invaded the whole planet. And if they haven't invaded it yet, there's probably a reason for it, and they will invade it when they want to invade it, because they've developed techniques and methodology that has pretty much given them control of the whole planet. So the bloodlines are very quietly working behind the scenes, but they're using the banking institutions as the front. So nobody is aware of the fact that it's the kings and the queens and the royalty of the world that is actually in control of what's going on here. But there again lies a possible twist of what could be going on, because the control must come from some higher order and not necessarily from the bloodlines. So it seems that we may still be under control of some extraterrestrials that have taken control of our planet a long time ago and are using the bloodlines and the people and the financial systems to keep humanity enslaved in such a spectacular way that the majority of the people are just simply not even aware of it. You know, then you look at the royalty worship. I mean, in England, it's crazy. The people actually worship the royalty. Why? I don't understand why people would behave like that. You know, some woman called the Queen owns all the land, owns half the world, and people worship her. And she's not doing anything for the people. She's just abusing the people, and the government is abusing the people, and people still come and worship them. It shows you that the slavery system has been imposed so well that the slaves have become their own prison wardens. Well, it's very simple to find out about whether your country is registered as a corporation, because that's what's happened to the whole world. Every country, every city, every state, every province, every county, everything in our lives, without us realizing it, has been turned into a corporation. We are little corporations. We have a birth certificate. So we are the property of someone else. If you have a certificate, get given a certificate at birth, it means you belong to somebody. You're the property of somebody who's laid claim to you. That's why there's a certificate issued in your name. And you belong to the corporation called Croatia. I belong to the corporation called the Republic of South Africa. And this is just spectacular deception that's been imposed on humanity. People just are not aware of this. And once they wake up and realize what's going on, it's a lot easier to figure out what we have to do to get ourselves out of this mess. But all you got to do is go onto the website of the Securities Exchange in the USA, in Washington, D.C., and there you see all the names of the registered countries as corporations. There's also Brad and Dunn's, what are they called again? Dun and Bradstreet, that have a list of all the countries and cities and provinces as corporations. City of Cape Town is traded as Municipality of Cape Town, I think, or something. But you can get all these details and information there. So it is not hidden. It's out there, but people don't go looking for it because they don't suspect such a crime to be committed against us right in front of our eyes. And this is how the elite have been getting away with this for so many hundreds and thousands of years, because people don't expect them to be committing crimes against the people, because we appoint our leaders as our servants. Most of us think that when we go voting in the elections, we vote for our president and our prime ministers and our leaders to be the servants, to serve the people. But that's not what really happens. We just think we are electing the leaders. Our leaders are not elected, they are selected for us, and we get given a choice of a few selected candidates, and then we select one of the lesser evils, but they all end up they all end up answering to the same authority, and that authority is the authority that controls the money and is connected to the royal bloodlines. Well, people often refer to, or people are referred to by the current system, the corporate system, as a legal fiction. So you're a piece of paper. Your birth certificate and your ID document and all the papers associated with you as a living, breathing human being are turned into pieces of paper. And you have to present an ID document when you get stopped by an authority. Well, have you got any identification? Yes, here, I am the identification. I'm standing in front of you, but that's not good enough. You have to present a piece of paper to tell them that this is you. And this is how there you can start seeing the deception. Why should you need any identification when you're standing right in front of the person of authority? And this is how they've turned us into obedient slaves. And we present our ID documents, which are the legal fiction of the living, breathing human being. And this is what gets used in the courts. This is what gets used in the legal system, and given various names, like a person is also not a living, breathing human being, and so it goes. So when people start finding this out, it's a big shock to the system, and they realize that they know nothing, or we know nothing about how we've been manipulated and lied to and abused. And once again, once you get over the shock and you realize that this is much worse than you ever imagined, then you start dealing with, what do we do about this? And this is where the Ubuntu movement comes in. Well, many people will be aware of the fact that humanity is under attack. We're under attack by in so many different ways, but one of the best and simplest ways to describe it are the chemtrails that are happening right above us, right now. For people that are not aware of this, wake up. These are not clouds. These are not vapor trails behind aeroplanes. These are poisonous chemical substances that are being sprayed into our skies. And on this beautiful island of Brach is today being completely under attack. They have not stopped spraying chemtrails on us since early this morning. There are toxins and chemicals and microscopic organisms and viruses and bacteria in there that are specifically put in there to do the planet harm and to create certain conditions, biological and ecological conditions, that suppress humanity, that poison our land, poison our water, poison our bodies, poison the air. We are under full-blown attack. Third World War has begun. It's just the people are not aware of it, and the war is coming down from the sky. First of all, we have to realize that we are the 99.99%. We, the people of the world, are the majority, by far the large majority. And we're being controlled and manipulated by a small number of individuals. Now, that clearly must give us a sense of confidence that we can change things in our own favor. And the Ubuntu movement is not about confronting anyone or fighting anyone or any violent activities. Those days are over. We're moving into higher consciousness. We're moving into unity consciousness, embracing the fact that we need to unite humanity from our deeply divided separation that has been imposed on humanity. Remember, the whole divide and conquer principle has been imposed on humanity. So we've been divided and separated so that we don't trust each other, and then we are turned against each other in situations of war and conflict that are created by the banking institutions and those that control money, because that's how they keep us in an ever perpetual state of division and conflict, and that's how they can keep control of humanity. So those days of conflict and violence are over. We need to start finding a new way, and the whole Ubuntu philosophy is exactly that: is to find a new way ahead, not to confront the old or create any violent situations. And to do that, we have to first understand what has happened in the past, what we should not be doing, and then find a new way forward. And